path to CRO. I'm Nicola, co-chapter head of London Pavilion, and I also have the delight of running the Scale Sessions podcast with Tom Lavery. So we have left you little postcards if you want to check it out. So that's Tom and me speaking to some amazing female revenue leaders, and there are some quite fabulous stories, so I highly recommend a listen. So today I get the delight of nosing into three rather fabulous CROs' path to the top, and we're going to be talking about challenges, opportunities, lesson learned and surprises on the way. But before we start, I would love to know from our audience, any of you already CROs? Okay, right. Might be asking you a couple of questions too then. And any aspiring CROs here?
Yep.
Okay, right. So no pressure on you three, but we're hoping for lots and lots of advice. We're going to chat for about 30-40 minutes, and then we'll make sure there's lots of time for questions, so please do get them lined up. So, over to the panel. A few quick intros. Phil, let's start with you.
Thank you. So I'm Phil Raby. I'm the CRO of Mediarithmics. Mediarithmics is a customer data platform. Contextually, what that means is we help media owners, broadcasters, retailers make better sense of their customer data, activate their customer data from a marketing and advertising point of view. So across Europe, we work with Channel 4, UK TV. We're a French business, so we work with all the French broadcasters like TF1 and Canal Plus and France Television as well, and some of the bigger retailers in France. As a business, we're Series B. We've raised 20 million, so not a lot of money. We're profitable and somewhere between 10 to 15 in ARR as well.
Great.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Hannah, really good to meet you. I am the CRO at Arctic Shores, which is a task-based psychometric assessment business in the HR tech space. The business was really born out of the idea that most people are so much more than what their CV will tell us they are. If you think about the best hire you've ever made or the best person you've ever worked with, it's rarely that they had the perfect skill set coming into the role. It's normally that they had really great learning agility, they were really adaptable, they were great problem solvers. We're essentially helping companies enrich their data set with that information during the hiring process. We work with a whole host of different businesses, from hiring Amazon graduates to Williams F1 engineers, nuclear scientists and train drivers. So very broad mix.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. And Neil.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Neil Mullane. I'm CRO at Thirdfort. We are a legal tech business. So we work with lawyers and property agents and protect them with their compliance burden, especially through the property buying process. If any of you have bought or sold a property in the last couple of years, you may well have used our app to do your ID verification, and we automate that whole process. We also have recently acquired a tenant referencing business called Home People, and we're integrating that into the business, so that's more on the letting side of things. We are about £12 million of ARR now, and similar Series A backed, VC backed, and growing pretty quickly. So.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about each of your journeys to the CRO role. Phil, Mediarithmics, which I just learned, by the way, is named after the Eurythmics, so that's how to remember it. So Phil, you started off actually in the business as a GM, and then you went up into CRO, so tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so I've been in, I guess, digital and media for the last 20 years. I started at Microsoft, so everybody knows Microsoft, when it was a big advertising business in the UK, and kicked around a couple of businesses. After that, affiliate, then moved on to Criteo, which was a big French unicorn. Started that business when it was 400 and left when it was 3,000 people. So huge scale, which was fun. The current business I'm in at the moment is actually French. I've been working for the French for 10 years now, so they keep on dragging me in. And lots of time in Paris. But yes, I started Mediarithmics actually from a consultancy point of view. So in the middle of COVID, I started working with them on a 2-day-a-week basis for 3 months, helping them with their sales strategy, which, you know, we were saying before, is a really good way to look behind the curtain from a culture point of view before committing to a long-term role. Luckily, after 3 months, they brought me on as the general manager international, so I came on board to lead the international charge. When we started the business, it was about 5 million in ARR, very few international clients as well. and really only French-based and very French-centric as well. And then 2 years into that role, I transitioned into the CRO role, looking after pretty much everything commercial in the business, sales, upsell, marketing, and pre-sales as well. So that's broadly been the journey from my point of view.
Was there already a CRO in place, or was this a new role for the business as well?
There was a CRO in place from 0 to about 7 million in ARR, and then from 7 million, the board wanted to make a change.
I see. And they looked at, did you put yourself forward, or did they come to you?
No, I
and
didn't
say-
put myself forward. No.
They came to you and said, right.
Yeah.
How did you feel when they came to you about that opportunity?
Happy and daunting. Yeah, it's I mean, we're going to get into it, but it's very different just looking after a sales org and then starting to look after every go-to-market function in the business when it comes to commercial. So pretty daunting.
But you knew quite a lot already from your consulting work. So
Exactly, yeah.
that's a good way in. And then, Hannah, very different route for you, because you were actually VP of Marketing and then promoted to CRO in January. So 6 months in, congratulations.
Thank you. So I count myself as a kind of baby CRO in comparison to you both, who are probably proper official CROs. So the journey is still quite fresh for me. So I guess my career path has been slightly unconventional in that I spent 6 years working for an edtech business, which is part of the Blenheim Chalcott venture portfolio, if anyone is familiar with it. Started as marketing manager and was promoted to CMO within about 4 years. What is quite unusual about the Blenheim Chalcott venture portfolio is that they are very hands-on, and they are essentially looking for people within their businesses who are high potential, who have good ideas, who could be future CEOs. So actually kind of if you get identified as high potential early on in your time in that business, then you're kind of constantly on some kind of career development program, and they're trying to teach you kind of how they like to do scaling and how they like people within their businesses to do scaling too. So actually as a learning curve for me, it was brilliant because I was getting kind of a mini, very practical MBA the whole time I was there, so I was able to develop quite a lot of skills in strategy, financial fluency, get a really good grounding in all of the different go-to-market functions as well as all of the different business areas as well. While I was at that business, I ran marketing, but I also actually ran a learning design team as well, so we were developing change management programs for Barclays, Legal & General, your big old school companies who need a lot of help with things like leadership development. So again, was kind of not exactly a pure CMO role, although actually a lot of the skills for how do you design learning programs and how do you develop behaviour change are actually not that dissimilar to how do you build an audience and how do you win people over to your point of view and get them into a buying cycle and that kind of thing. So that was already kind of semi-unconventional. I then moved to Arctic Shores about 2 years ago, actually on a referral from a former boss of mine who's doing some consulting for them. He said, they're looking for a VP of marketing. I think they're a great business. The role's designed to turn into a CMO role within about 18 months, but really they don't want to bring a brand new person into the leadership team, which I think is not entirely unusual, without kind of meeting them and building relationships and really stress testing their capability. And also I was kind of happy to roll my sleeves up, get stuck in. They actually kind of wanted someone quite hands-on for that role. And then towards the end of last year, actually the business went through a little bit of a leadership transition. So we had, the business was run by a founder, CEO, who actually decided maybe it's time to hand over the reins and maybe it's time to take on a slightly different role, doing more founder-led sales, more in market. And so my boss, who was the chief growth officer, but essentially CRO, moved into the CEO role, and I was asked if I would take on the CRO role at the same time, which was never in my game plan.
So you never thought about going into the CRO space?
I genuinely never even considered it at all. It was, not part of the plan.
And what areas do you cover?
So I cover marketing, sales and customer success. So full go-to-market.
And how big is the team?
Not huge actually. So we are 3.5 million ARR. So again, relatively early on in our journey. And the revenue team is about 12 people.
Right. How big is yours, Phil?
The organisation's 100 across 4 markets, and revenue team's 15.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, Neil, you took your first CRO role at Thirdfort. So tell us a little bit about how you got that.
Well, I actually started out in travel originally, just selling round the world tickets for a student travel company.
Which is my favourite, STA
Yeah.
Travel. Love it.
No longer here.
I'm sad about that.
Yeah. And ended up moving into retail banking on the business banking side at a major bank. Did a few years there, ran some scale teams there across big regions, and then got asked by an ex-colleague of mine to go and work for a company called Funding Circle, and moved from a team of 300 people that I had at Barclays to running a small commercial finance broker team of about 10, and ended up being head of sales, VP of sales there as we went through an IPO, which was absolutely an unbelievable experience. Really thoroughly enjoyed that, and that was my first foray into tech. From there I moved. I wanted something more, and there wasn't really anything more that I could get out of Funding Circle, and I'd done business lending for a long time, and I got approached to work for a company called Dex, or when I joined they were called Receipt Bank, and they rebranded, and I did 2 years there as the UK general manager. I also looked after South Africa for a small amount of time, but unfortunately that my job was to run down the office there, which wasn't pleasant, and I never actually even got to do the visit out there either, which I was very disappointed about, but there you go. And did a couple of years there. And what's really interesting, what I found there as the UK GM, which was quite difficult, was the C-suite was based in the UK, and that actually was quite hard, because quite often things would go on around the GM with the C-suite, and they would be involved, and it got quite frustrating. So, quite often the product team would go to my boss, the CRO, and say, hey, we want to do this, and we're going to do it in the UK. He'd come to me and I'd go, that's a stupid idea. Why are we doing it? Why didn't they come and talk to me first? But I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. That was my and I got approached by Thirdfort, who were looking for their first CRO. The two founders, Ollie and Jack. Ollie looked after the commercial side, Jack looks after the product side. And so Ollie was doing the hiring. He's like, I don't think I've done as much as I can on the commercial side, and I think he does himself a disservice. Yeah, he did not have a sales background, but he kind of got it. He just didn't have the processes and structures, and he was unbelievable, and it still is unbelievable with clients, and knows the market inside out. And I took the role there 2.5 years ago, so I'm past the average tenure of 17 months.
As are you. Well done.
Yeah, little celebration on that day, I think it was. And I've loved it. And at the moment, I look after marketing, sales, customer success, and customer support, because we have a lot of support to help you through the app journey. And now I look after the home people acquisition, and I am currently account exec, CSM, product manager. I'm not product manager, we've got product manager now, but I've been doing that alongside as we pulled the business in, because they didn't have a sales team whatsoever. But that's been fascinating for me, because I've learned a huge amount in the last 5 months. But I'm quite tired.
So how big's the team that you have, and how big should it be?
Thirdfort is about 120 people, and in the commercial function there is now about 70. Wow. But 20 of those are analysts that sit on the home people side, and 25 are customer support execs. So the actual sales team is quite small, and if we get to it, I can talk a little bit more about that, but we have deliberately kept it small, and I've made some changes to do that, to run it as efficiently as possible. Yeah.
And so you've gone from travel to Thirdfort. Has there been one pivotal moment in your career that's really put you on this trajectory?
Well, the pivotal moment was when I got the call out of the blue to leave Barclays, but the pivotal moment was actually the person who called me to go and move over there, is a guy called Luke Joost, brilliant leader. He was a peer of mine at Barclays. He ran property while I run a business division, and I helped Luke at different points with. I was a performance manager, so I helped him with some of the performance management, the pipeline management, things that he was very strong on the technical property side of things, and just so I provided a bit of advice and support. And so when it came to him wanting that similar role at Funding Circle, he rang me up, and it was the I mean, I think the people at Barclays thought I was absolutely mental. But it was the best move I've ever made in my life.
Did you know immediately, like, I need to do this, or was there a lot of lists written about protocols?
There was a bit of nervousness because you're like, I looked at my team at Barclays and I went, if I stay here for another 2 years, I'm here for another 20. Like the average tenure of my team was about 24 years, and they were a great team. They didn't like me when I left because Barclays then restructured the region and blah blah blah. And so, but that wasn't my fault. I got the opportunity, and it was the right move for me to make. Because, to be honest, like, I enjoyed my time at Barclays. I got a lot out of it, but I was stagnating, and there wasn't a lot more for me to do there. And so it was the right time, and it enabled me to be much more creative and see more of what I do on a day-to-day basis, how much that impacts the business overall, and that was what I was kind of craving.
What a change, though, from Barclays to funding. Like, just the pace must have been insane.
It was like you went from like 4% growth, which, by the way, inflation was 2% at the time, so 50% of it, thank you very much, to like 60 to 100% growth, and that was fantastic. There are two parts. Like at Barclays, I was given one of the moments when I knew I was leaving was they rolled out this thing as a regional manager that was called the regional empowerment model. I was given all my data, and they said, "Tell us what you want. Tell me how many sales reps you want, where you want them, what industries you want them in, all of that sort of thing." So I did all that, spent 2 weeks on it, put it into the centre, and they came back and they said, "That was a brilliant pitch of what you wanted. Here's what you get," and it was what I had already minus 10%. Right? That was it, right? And then in my first month at Funding Circle, I got asked to pull together what I wanted to do with the broker team, put it together, and said, "Look, this is what I need. This is the investment I need over the next 2 years." And within an hour, I had it approved, and I was ready to go.
And then did you have to deal with your own shock of like, oh my God, I've actually got it?
Well, not only that, I then realised I had to do a lot of it. People to do it for me. But that was the fun bit. I had a really good team of people who were just so enthusiastic to grow. It's great.
Wonderful. Hannah, what about you? Was there one pivotal moment for you?
Oh, it's a good question. I think one of the pivotal moments for me actually was when I was not necessarily related to CRO role, although obviously being asked to do it was quite pivotal in itself. In the last business I was in, it was, I think like lots of businesses, when you get to a point when you're kind of venture backed and the board are very involved in the business, we were kind of in that mode, and actually I was finding it kind of increasingly difficult to actually just get my job done, do the things I felt like were the right thing, and it felt a bit like a kind of crazy battle, and I think I was very in my head about it, thinking, oh, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, maybe I'm not resilient enough. And I had a conversation with a former boss who'd also worked in the portfolio, who kind of said to me, not all companies are like this, and that you can leave. And I just had this moment where actually I kind of sense checked myself, sense checked my imposter syndrome, thought a bit about like, well, what advice would I be giving someone else if they were describing the situation that I'm in right now? And I probably would be telling them it's probably time to go and think about something new. And I think that was kind of a pivotal moment for me mindset wise, in actually thinking, do you know what, whatever job I'm in, I'm obviously going to give it my best shot, but actually if the conditions aren't right, there probably is going to be a time when actually I need to be prepared to say I'm gonna go now.
What wonderful advice. Are you still in touch? Because she must be so proud to see where you got to now.
Yeah.
She can say it's all down to me.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what about you, Bill?
I'll give two because they're the same company, if that's okay. Yeah, because they kind of lead one into another. But I mentioned Criteo before, so I'm not sure if anybody knows Criteo, but they were. Did you?
A long time ago.
This is when you were Snapfish?
Yes.
Ah, yeah, okay, fine. So as I said, getting in was a pivotal moment in the first instance because, as I said, it was 400 people when I joined, and when I started the business, we were having meetings where we were talking about growth, and it was like 300% growth, 400% growth year on year, and it was just, every year we were having these discussions. It was just ridiculous. And as I said, it went from 400 to 3,000 people in the space of 3 years. We IPO'd $2 billion or 2 billion euros, whatever it was. So that was kind of number one. And number two was, within that role, I started the role as an AE. And then 2 years into the role, I was there for 5. I took on my first leadership role, so taking over enterprise sales for the UK. And that role kind of came up again through kind of opportunity, through chaos, because my boss at the time was also kind of pushed because we had a new MD come in and he wanted a new team. So and hopefully, obviously, I was good enough for the role as well when I got that role. But those are probably the two pivotal moments of my career. Yeah.
And when you were an AE, were you doing any level of enterprise sales, or was it relatively SMB?
Only enterprise. So Criteo was split 2 ways. It was enterprise, which was basically the top, 100 brands per market across retail and travel.
Right. And
mid-market was basically everything below that.
Right.
And then eventually they moved all the mid-market teams out to Barcelona, which was, I guess, good for the people that got to go to Barcelona. And they were all typically 22 to 26-year-olds. So.
Great ride.
Yeah.
And when you went from your GM role into the CRO, what was the biggest surprise for you?
Probably, so in the GM role, it was very much led around sales from a management point of view, and moving into the CRO role, it was looking after every commercial function, so account management and pre-sales, and probably the biggest surprise is the context shifting on a daily basis. It's you're having a conversation with marketing that's very different because you're having a conversation around awareness and driving MQLs and SQLs, and you have a conversation with the sales team, and it's a very different conversation because you're having it about very specific details about a deal and account plans and so on and so forth, and it's kind of shifting from this meeting, and then you're maybe having a conversation with a board member as well on the same day. That was probably the biggest surprise in the role.
Any tips on how you deal with that?
In his left hand.
Work-life balance. Yeah, do stuff outside of work as well.
Hannah, what about you? What was the biggest surprise for you guys?
I think actually it was kind of a pleasant surprise for me, which I definitely relate to the context switching being quite a challenge. One of the things that I observed is that actually a lot of challenges or a lot of problems in the way that you set up a team are often people problems, and they are operating problems, and actually they come down to things like, do we have a good strategy? Is the team clear on the plan? Do we have the right level of discipline around the things that we know we should be doing, and are we following the processes? Or actually, is this problem like a really big problem, or because it feels big and it feels stressful to you, or actually is it a fundamental problem and do we need to go and figure that out, and do we need to get our heads together with the product team? All those things are true in marketing, and all those things are true in sales, and they are also true in customer success. And so actually, while there were some things that did feel like a bigger shift and kind of newer learnings, actually the fundamentals I think are true of any role when you get to a senior level.
So it didn't feel quite as daunting as you thought it would?
I wouldn't say that, but yeah, I felt like I could add value straight away, I guess.
And then what about you, Neil?
Decisions. I think the biggest thing that, whereas you're kind of moving roles and thinking about it, it's you're like, okay, yeah, great, I want to be a CRO, I want to have more influence on the business, I want to move into that position. And then when you get there, you're like, every single day, it's 1,000 decisions. And it's making quick decisions as well. And I think Phil mentioned the word, or I can't remember whether you, Hannah, mentioned imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is there every single day, believe me. I'm still trying to work out whether people realise I'm making it up as I go.
We all are.
We all are, right?
Yeah.
But you've got and it links to Phil's, whether it's a rep coming to you asking you about pricing on a deal, whether it's a board member who wants to know why a number isn't moving in the right direction or not, and what you're doing about it. It's just a constant day of decisions, and I kind of get home at the end of the day, and I cook at home as well, but my wife will say, look, well, what do you want for dinner? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to decide. It's like, please, just take that decision away from me.
I think there's a lot of agreement going on.
But and actually, I had my 13-year-old son came in for it was a day at work that he had to do as part of his for his school, and he came in and he kind of said to me, he's like, so basically like, Ollie's the big boss, but you have to make all these decisions every day. And I was like, yeah. And it's like, that's why I'm tired. And he came in and saw how, like, in the meetings, and he was bored out of his mind, by the way. Absolutely bored out of his mind. But he saw the amount of decisions that you have to make and where that kind of comes from. And it's a lot of meetings, and it's just trying to find that time for yourself to breathe for a moment.
So does he now make your decisions for you at home, your son?
They both do. They have done for a long time.
And so in your time as CRO, 2.5 years has it
Yeah.
you've been? What's been the biggest learning you've had? I always love a good mistake or fuck up, basically.
I think it's knowing. And this is something else for it's knowing when to get involved and when not to get involved. And you spend a lot of your time thinking, right, okay, this needs me to get into it, and actually my team can handle that. They can manage that. They can do all that they need to do. And it's just because naturally at Funding Circle I did a load of stuff. You got really heavily involved, and as you move up, it's remembering you don't have to do that, and you've got a team of people who can do it, and that's what they want to do. And I think that took a lot of learning for me to know. Okay, I don't need to. I've got a head of marketing, I've got a head of sales. But the head of marketing knows that he knows more about marketing than I do. So I'm like, you go do it. And I think it's just remembering that, really.
Yeah. I was chatting to a CRO just before I came here, and he said exactly the same. He said, I didn't think I was a control freak until I got promoted to CRO, and then I was like, oh my God, it's so hard to let go and to delegate, even though I know it's the right thing to do.
Actually, today I had one where we're doing something with our partnership program, and for the first time I sat there for where I haven't, and I deliberately said to a team of 3 people looking at it, I said, here's what I want you to do. Here are the guardrails for it, and that's what I've learned over time. Give them the guardrails to then go and deliver for me, and I know that the person looking after it will come back with a great plan and tell me, okay, this is what. Because not only that, I've said I want a recommendation. Then I don't have to make the decision as well.
Ah, yes. Delegating the decisions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hannah, what's been your biggest lesson learned?
I think, so I guess coming back to the decision making point that Neil made, I think in my first 3 months I massively burnt myself out. I think I may be sensing a theme here. I felt like there were suddenly so many decisions to make, so many of them felt like quite new decisions that actually I kind of, you know the theory of what good sales looks like and customer success, but actually the day-to-day reality of having to make decisions about things you've never really had to make decisions about before feels like quite a big shift. And it took a few months of me feeling like, oh God, I've got to sense check every decision that I'm making with the CEO, to sense check, does this feel like the right thing? And then I kind of went on holiday, had a moment of being like, I can't keep doing this like in this way. Yeah, and I spoke to some peers, like went for coffees with a few people, and I kind of realised that I just need to make some decisions, and I just need to be comfortable that they might not be the right decisions, and if they're not the right decisions, that's fine. But it's better than me feeling constantly like I have to be doing the perfect job. And actually, for me, I think I'd been asked to take on this role, which wasn't a role that I had set out to do. But actually, I'd been in the business for 18 months. I had, really good relationships with the CEO and the founder, and I had good kind of trust with the team as well. And actually, I kind of, realised I was putting all this pressure on myself to make perfect decisions that no one else was putting on me. And actually, they were quite prepared for me to, have a go and see what happened, and obviously be sensible. And, there's obviously your revolving door decisions that you can move back from, and then there's your closed door decisions, which are really big decisions, which actually you want to make as a leadership team. But I think one of the biggest lessons for me was actually just got to crack on and know that I'm not going to be perfect.
And be a bit nicer to yourself.
And being a bit nicer to myself, yeah.
Yeah. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And what would you say is one of yours to add to the decisions and being nicer to yourself?
I think learning. It's related to the CRO role, but it's also related to leadership. When I first took my first leadership role at Criteo, if I kind of look back on it, one of the things I take from that is I probably didn't surround myself with people or a network that had done the role before. Gone through the same challenges, encountered the same situations, and there wasn't anything like Pavilion 10, 15 years ago as well. So now we're lucky that we have it. So what I would recommend of anybody going into a CRO role or anything in terms of leadership is just to have a very good support network around you, I guess, in terms of, again, those people that can kind of lead you through. They're all common challenges, right? We sit and have these breakfasts and lunches with Pavilion, and everybody has the same challenge. Everybody has the same issue that they're going on, maybe just at different stages as well. So that's probably one of my biggest learnings of surrounding yourself with mentors.
And they can also help you make some of those decisions.
Exactly.
Which is a bonus.
Yeah.
So Hannah, 6 months in, what would you say are the top 3 most important skills for an aspiring CRO?
Really good question. I actually think, and I've been thinking quite a lot about this, I think it comes back to the ethos of the business that I work for right now. When you think about your skills in any role, you think about your hard skills, so your knowledge of sales specifically, or your knowledge of customer success, or your knowledge of marketing. Those are skills that you can learn and that are going to, what good looks like is going to change all the time. You're going to have to be constantly refreshing your skills anyway. And so actually the most important skills, I think, are the more kind of fundamentals, or in my experience so far, which are things like your ability to learn, your learning agility, your ability to think really critically and actually look at a hard problem and figure out how to solve it, and figure out who you need to bring in to solve the problem. You don't have to solve the problem yourself. How do you win over the team? How do you influence? It's those kinds of, the softer skills really. And then I think also your self-efficacy, so your self-awareness, your ability to reflect, your ability to be quite resilient and have good bounce back ability. It's all those kinds of things I think actually that are true of any C-suite leader, to be honest, but I think definitely true of the CRO role. I would love to have more deeper subject matter expertise in all 3 of the disciplines, but I feel like I'm learning that. But the thing that I keep coming back to, and actually one of the reasons that I felt like I could take on the role after some pep talks from some friends and family mentors, was I know I can figure out stuff that's hard, and I've figured out hard problems in the past, and I know I can go and learn, and I can go and speak to people, and I'll get there eventually. I don't have to have all the answers right now. And so I think actually thinking more about their transferable skills are the ones that will, I think, stand you in good stead.
And you can't have all the answers.
Exactly.
It's new stuff anyway. Anything you'd like to add, Neil?
I think the kind of linked to a few things that you said, the being able to communicate at so many different levels throughout is a really interesting, is a really important skill. If you're speaking to a board member, they do not care whether Tommy has been out sick for 2 weeks or not. They care about, and the reasons why you might be where you are. They care about hard and fast what's their investment going to do and where are they, versus Tommy, who cares about whether you care about him being out sick or whatever. And he's not just been on a night out or something like that. So you have to think about those, and I'm literally talking to a support agent whose first job it is, and how do you connect with them? I think Hannah picked up on a couple of resilience, and then the final one is empathy. I think is so important. I have worked for and with so many leaders who lack empathy that I run away as soon as I see that, and I think it's so important, especially for understanding what's going on in someone's world and why they are. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, especially when you're working with so many different levels.
100%, yeah.
Any you want to add on?
So I completely agree on the communication thing, and also analytical as well, but also being able to, it's not just about being able to pull numbers and being good at math. It's about being able to look at numbers and actually tell a narrative from numbers. Because a narrative in one board pack might be very different to a board pack 6 months down the road, but with similar numbers. That's really key. And then the other one is attention to detail, which should be obvious, but you can't really make any mistakes when you send board packs to board members, especially from a numbers point of view. And it has to be completely aligned across the C team as well. And you can get yourself into some pretty tricky situations by having incorrect figures in board packs.
And they have such eagle eyes; they spot them immediately.
Well, I mean, they are bean counters, VCs, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we had a horrific one. I was telling these guys where the revenue team reported different numbers to our CFO. That did not go very well. Don't ask me why we didn't check. Gives me goosebumps. So there was actually a CRO dinner last night with Pavilion, and of course one of the hottest topics was AI. So it would be remiss of me not to bring this up today. So I would love to hear how you are thinking about AI in your go-to-market motion. I can start with you, Phil.
I think probably in the really obvious places, marketing. So using AI for content creation. That could be written. It could be image and video as well. Also, from an SDR point of view, we don't actually have SDRs at Mediarithmics, but from a prospecting point of view, using AI to build outreach emails is obviously very obvious, but it's a direction that we've gone in most recently. And then the other one is around technology and go-to-market tools as well. Most of these tools have, I guess, AI built into them. We use a business in France called Clap, which, I mean, there are tons of these businesses, right, that kind of track calls and kind of pull it into a summary based off the back of that call, and then pump it into your HubSpot, and these all kind of cut corners. So those are the main areas that we've used, and we're still in the early stages of figuring out where AI from an application point of view can actually help us, rather than just using AI for the sake of using AI.
Yeah, so valuable. Hannah?
Yeah, not to repeat what you've just said, so lots of similar things. I think we are early on in our AI journey.
As is everyone.
As is everyone, yeah. Probably not as far along as I would like us to be. Yeah. But I think actually a lot of the AI use for me is around the culture of empowering the team to make sure they are being really curious and they're thinking really hard about actually, do you need to spend this manual time on doing this thing that you're doing, or is there a better way to do it? Is there different tooling that could support you in doing it? That kind of thing. We are, actually quite a few of my team are building custom GPTs to help them with things like outreach, or actually even for checking deals against jolt effect, that kind of thing. Using it a lot for training decks and that kind of thing. So again, I guess, to build on some of the use cases that you've said, those are a few different things that we're doing. I also actually did an exercise recently to really look at our whole go-to-market function and look at actually where are the opportunities for using AI, and actually do we even have the skill set in the team to think really strategically about where we could actually add value. And I think I'm a big believer that actually, even if you've got AI tools to enhance your productivity and make you more effective, if you have a bad strategy and you don't have the good go-to-market fundamentals in place, you're kind of just optimizing a broken funnel. And I think we're in a pretty good space where we've got some of the fundamentals right now, but actually there's a few things that we are thinking about in terms of actually shifting from kind of outbound and inbound being quite separate towards more of an all-bound motion. And actually when I was looking across the team, I was thinking, I've got really strong brand and content team, but I don't have really amazing demand gen technical team, and also actually outbound, don't have a super experienced outbound leader. I'm a big believer that you create jobs based on competencies, not based on job titles. And I also actually, this is a new reflection on something that I had not realised, but I was at a breakfast event this morning for a group of chief people officers thinking about kind of future of work and what does AI mean for the people function and talent function. And it was really interesting actually that they were talking a lot about how you might have teams who are dabbling around the edges, but actually if you're an operational leader, if you're a head of sales or you're a head of customer success, to actually really experiment and think really hard about where you can learn or where you can use these new tools. It's really hard to carve enough space out to do the proper creative quality thinking. And so one of the reflections I realised is what I've done is I'm actually hiring for a head of go-to-market at the moment who will look across all three functions and think about both how do we bring pipeline generation together from marketing and sales a lot more tightly, but also where across the whole three teams can we optimise, can we be more productive, can we use AI to get efficiency gains as well. So I'm hiring for it at the moment. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah,
We'll see where we go.
And interesting because you're really giving your team permission to experiment, just to see what you can find.
Fairly similar. I think I actually went to my revenue teams and said, how are you using it? And I was quite surprised with how much came back. Quite a lot.
Positive.
Yeah. And look, we have tools. We have called transcription tools and coaching tools, not Jiminny, sorry. Apologies. But it's amazing the amount of AI that's being used in those. So we have all of that. From an SDR, from an AE perspective, actually one of my team basically said, look, the biggest investment you can give us is how do I stop spending 2 hours of research to make 3 calls? I want to make 20 calls after 20 minutes of research. So that's something that we are looking at the moment. How do we do that? And the dinner I was at last night with the Nicola reference, you got people using different tools. One of them was Dust, where they built their own AI agents to do call coaching, in the moment coaching, and send it out based on their framework, their really, really specific framework, and that kind of thing has worked. For me personally, I mean, I spend most of my day using ChatGPT. Now, I don't send an email to a client unless I put it through ChatGPT. I delete the double hyphens, right? And there's a couple of other bits as well. And I've learned myself to become really good with prompts, and that's really good based on where I was before. But like when we did the acquisition of Home People, I knew nothing about a very specific part of the lettings market called build to rent. And I used part of ChatGPT, part of the deep research for it to do a huge amount of research on what's the market size, who are the main players, where do I go to find them, what do I do, and I put that a huge amount into deep research to pull out a full, I basically got it to pull out a full go-to-market for me. I did it and I'm like, that is amazing. And I used it, I put it into Notion, which we use, I sent it to my boss and I said, look what I've produced. And he came straight back, he went, there's no way you produced that without AI, because I can see your grammar in there. But that saved me probably about 2 weeks' work. Took me half a day, right? Yeah. That is the difference that you can get, and I think that's where it can help you as go-to-market leaders, especially when you've got things like that are going on to really help you.
And it can also decide what you want for dinner.
Can do, yes, that is true. That is true, yeah.
Give it to So we're going to have a quick fire round and then we're going to come to you for Q&A. So, question number 1 to you, Phil. What is one book, podcast you would recommend to our audience for aspiring CROs?
It's less about being CROs or anything like that. It's just more business. It's anything to do with Scott Galloway.
I love him.
Yeah,
G.
yeah, it's good. He lives in London now.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stalk him, but not so far. I love him. He's so funny.
Yeah.
I read a book recently called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which is about like how do you manage your time, how do you put work and life into perspective. I think to your point, Phil, like you are context switching all the time. You could never stop working at all doing this job or any job, and it has been a game changer for me reading that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I came with one, but I've got another one that came from last night. If that's right.
You can have two on this one occasion.
I will go to books wise. Anything by Patrick Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Yeah. Very, very important. Very good grounding. The second one, which I listened to this morning, and it was from about 6 weeks ago, and I think it's the Pavilion Top Line podcast. Mm-hmm. It was Kevin Dorsey and Carl Norton talking about AI. Yeah. Best hour and a bit I've listened to. I think everyone's listened to it.
We can send this round afterwards.
Yeah. But very, very good. Very, very useful.
Staying with you, Neil. Most overrated and underrated trait in a CRO?
most overrated trait that you need to know everything about each individual part of your. Like, I knew nothing about marketing realistically coming in. You don't need to know that. Underrated, I will go back to empathy. I don't think people realise how important it is.
Hannah?
That's quite hard because I was going to say that.
Oh.
I think overrated. I think I always used to think that people doing CRO jobs, you have to be super charismatic and be able to really own the room and that kind of thing. I think that's probably a bit overrated. That you can be yourself, be competent, and that's probably enough. And underrated, I think, is just having no ego and being completely prepared to just say, put your hands up, say you got it wrong.
Any you want to add?
Being super aggressive or a super aggressive seller, overrated. Because you have to think about the short term and the long term in a CRO role. So more strategically. So that's probably the most overrated thing, I think. And then underrated, maybe having a good understanding of the whole customer journey rather than just thinking about sales.
Yeah, really good advice. Before we go to Q&A, one last question. What's one takeaway for our audience? We'll start with you. Great piece of advice.
It's hard.
Do you really want to do it?
It's really hard. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah.
Be resilient.
But it's rewarding as well.
Okay.
So I had a question. It's kind of back of what you said. So I think you're absolutely right in terms of those skills being the most important, the soft skills. But then for someone trying to break into that CRO the first time, and maybe they're at a big company or whatever, and they don't have direct exposure to people that can put them on that path, how do they get that across to people? Because a lot of people look at CVs, which have hard experience. Maybe they're going up against other people who have been CROs already. How does someone who's going to be a first-time CRO get that they've got a lot of those skills across to potential hirers?
What's your role at the moment?
I head up solution launches for go-to-market, but for FIS, so it's like 70,000 employees.
I wish there was a really easy answer to that question. And there was also a Pavilion panel a few weeks ago, wasn't there, about like transitions in the C-suite and into different roles. And actually, I think I was pleasantly surprised, kind of pleasantly surprised because it made me feel a bit better. But I think actually a lot of people who've made those transitions have done it from within an existing business. So I think if I was going to give any advice, it would be think really carefully about the next business you go to work for and make sure it's one that really values kind of potential, and there are different paths for progression and there's different exposure to different people and different teams. I think picking a business with the right CEO who really values those things is really important. And then I think it's about just making it known that actually you've got an ambition in this direction and are there any stretch projects that you could get involved in. And actually I think also doing things without having permission or being asked to do them. So actually one thing that was quite interesting for me is I had ended up kind of organically getting quite involved in a few projects around sales. So things like we need to change our pricing. Pricing's not working. We need to go figure out pricing. And actually VP of sales at the time was stretched super thin, wasn't quite able to think big picture enough about it, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll help, let's figure it out. We did a similar thing where actually our close rates were much lower than we really wanted, and so again I kind of was like, okay, well, I think I have got some ideas around why this might be, so let's go figure it out. And actually I think just getting involved in those things and offering to help and doing it to be helpful rather than to get noticed, I think was something that really was valuable for me, and probably in hindsight building relationships with other people in the C-suite and kind of showing that maybe I have got some of the transferable skills that
was
might
such
be
a common theme
valuable.
in all of our sessions and the podcast. All the female revenues said that was one thing that really helped them go on that journey, was getting involved and picking up the projects that no one else wanted to do but they needed to be done, just putting themselves forward. Anything you want to add? Or?
Completely agree. I mean, I've only ever been promoted, I guess, in businesses that I've already been there. I think going up from the outside is super difficult.
Yeah.
Super difficult.
And build out your network as well.
Yeah.
Really important to surround yourself with lots of people in those positions who can give you advice and mentorship as well. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so as a CRO, I know you're accountable to the number, right? Coming back to your earlier comment around kind of control freak, I understand why that can happen sometimes. The question is, how do you communicate bad news to your leadership team, to the board? Because sometimes you miss, right? How do you guys go about communicating that? Especially, it's really difficult to, because no one wants to hear bad news. So how do you guys do that?
As soon as it's happening. Yeah, I mean, so our board cadence is every 2 months, which is nice. It's not that regular, but we're always speaking to the board in between anyway. So by the time we get to the board meeting, they already know if we've missed what we were going to say or if we've exceeded what we're going to say. So it's just constant communication with the board, and if there is bad news, my business is only enterprise, so if we don't work on a lot of deals, and if deals fall out, it can have a big impact. So I guess quick communication and why, basically.
Don't do that horrible shock every 2 months.
Yeah. Not
Any
good.
other tips?
I think that's spot on. I think the transparency is so important. But I know I said earlier on they don't care about the smaller details, but they want to know the narrative, and they want to know the narrative and how it relates to the numbers. Like, I can sit there and we had a great first quarter, for example, on new business, but if I know my pipeline is shot because we've emptied it, I'll tell them. I'll tell them that's a risk, and it's about how you position that with them. But it's also balancing that with making sure you're positive and bullish around things. But it's always that piece, like Phil was making the point earlier on about the amount of growth that they're after. There are times where you have to go, actually, no, that's not possible, and it's really important that you set the expectations out as early as possible. I'd say your first couple of board meetings are really important, because that's when you get to say, here's what I've seen to begin with, and so that you set the scene as to where you can go with it.
Off the back of that, Neil, so obviously you're starting a new CRO, you want to make an impression, you want to give confidence to the board that you're the right hire. How do you make sure you don't sound like a people pleaser?
Well, I think by actually being that honest at the start. Like, I went in, and my first board meeting, I was asked for my early impressions, and I laid out the problems at the start. And my challenge there was, I had Ollie on the side of me, who'd been the head running the commercial team, but we had a conversation beforehand, and I said, look, these are the problems, I'm going to talk about them.
Okay.
And then that buys you time. Okay, so that gives you the ability to get involved and fix some of those things. But you've just got to make sure you're then able to show the progress from there.
I had some really good advice when I was in the CMO role from one of the CEOs I worked for, who I remember, writing a board pack. The news that we were conveying was not necessarily positive. We weren't where we wanted to be. And actually he said to me, your job is to tell the board what's happening. It's not to sell to the board.
Yeah,
So they're there to help you run the business and be responsible. And actually, I think Sam Jacobs in one of the podcasts says, your job is to be an objective analyst, and it is to run towards bad news. And actually that's something I've really embedded with the team. And actually I think that's can be one of the biggest watch outs as well, is actually if your team end up freaking out that if they tell you something bad is going to happen, then it's going to come back to bite them. Actually, you want them to tell you something bad is going to happen way before it shows up in the numbers, so you can have the conversation with the board. And then I think it's about, as you've both said, going in and saying, this is what's going to happen, and this is the plan, and this is the detail. I think they don't necessarily always care about the detail if it's just day to day, but they probably care about the detail if it's going wrong, and they want to have confidence that the detail and that you're on it. So I think got to rip the band-aid off.
I think we've got time for one more question. We got a couple.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm VP of revenue in a small startup, so we're like 2-3 years old. Founder-led business. The positive is like my founder is commercially minded, not product-led. So it's positive, but there is also some negative. But everyone have already been saying that commercially was better than product-led. But anyway, it's fresh from literally this morning. It's great. It gives me a lot of leeway in terms of sales strategy. It's the next Microsoft dude. It's like, as I said, commercially minded. But sometimes it will have a thought overnight or over a previous conversation, and we'll place a meeting like we had this morning, and ultimately like started to layer a new process related to sales, including like admin and elements that is more enduring than anything else for me, and I don't really see the value for the team to leverage that. It's sporadic, but it's at that moment where on top of that I've stopped vaping and I don't know how to communicate. Really, like, shall I communicate that? How do I? But the more important, it's like to the point earlier, like I do not have necessarily a huge network of people in the same situation than I am.
Yeah.
So when I'm facing those things with my founder, it's more about how do I communicate that that decision you just made unilaterally is going to impact me, my job, and potentially the team, and provide a wrong like next step for the next few weeks coming. So if you have any experience there on how to handle that.
CEOs will always be helicopters though, right? Pretty much.
Okay, so
Yeah. I mean, mine's he gives me lots of leeway, but he's a helicopter still. So he'll go away for the weekend and come back with a great idea. Standard. It's normal.
Yeah, or when they go meet with other founders. Oh, they're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this.
exactly,
We should
yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely be doing
I had this
this
great
in a
thing.
completely different market.
I went to a conference.
Usually-
Yeah.
They
Just read
usually
this book.
like